Okay, so we are here with the North Node, South Node series. Yay! Saturn series is done because that is so depressing. But our North Node and South Node placements are really important in our chart, or important in our chart. So the North Node is basically where we are trying to head towards in this lifetime, what is going to bring us more soul fulfillment, because it's kind of far away from us. It feels kind of scary and intimidating, but it is something that we kind of yearn for and want deep down inside. And it might be the secret sauce to how you actually get what you want in life if you are actually doing the work or being brave or moving towards this North Node placement, whichever zodiac sign yours is in, as well as which house it is in as well. Those two things are going to give you the clues for your personalized North Node kind of explanation, and always think about your whole natal chart and your unique planetary placements and aspects, and how they combine, and think of the transits that are going on right now in the world. Not everyone is the same age, so things are hitting at different life stages for each and every one of you, and that is going to determine, also depending on what choices you made during those times, what kind of path you're going to be taking. Or what opportunities open up for you or are kind of blocked for you. And our South Node placement is basically where we're super comfortable in. It's like we don't even have to try. It's common sense. It's almost like street smart, like you just know it and you don't really know why, whether you believe in past lifetimes and you've mastered this area in life for many rounds of life, and you got it so down that you are beyond the PhD of your South Node. You could write the book of your South Node placement. Or you can think of it as like just during childhood, you just naturally took on this, archetype and role without anyone trying to tell you what to do or told you anything. You just did it unconsciously. This is where you are super comfortable. It is, where you kind of cling on to or go to all the time because you just know it. You know it so well. Just like all of us with our strengths and weaknesses, will tend to go towards what we're good at more so than what we suck at, and so don't forget to work on your weaknesses, work on things that you're not the best at, even though you need extra help or tutoring or research and you have to practice, like every spare moment that you have, work on your weaknesses, a little bit. Doesn't mean you have to be perfect. Doesn't mean you need to master it or anything like that. But this is kind of relating to moving towards that North Node to feel more fulfilled, more happy, getting what you ended up wanting, even though that took you many years, you're slowly just moving in that direction. So your South Node is kind of like you're just so used to doing this area of life so much. You are like the master of your South Node. I forgot what I already said. But your south node is just where you're super comfortable at, where you have lived many, many lifetimes as this archetype. And so you don't need to learn anymore about that. You've done it, you've been there, done that, and now you're kind of bored spiritually, and you want to try something that feels kind of like out of the box, and that is your north node placement. So it's really good for your spiritual and soul growth, and practicing not staying stuck, so yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So now we're going to go through each of the zodiac signs. We're going to start with Aries, or first house. So check out both your zodiac sign of where your north node is, as well as the house. Whatever zodiac sign that house, that zodiac represents. Check out that area as well for more clues if you are doing the research all by yourself. So good luck and see you. Yeah. Okay, so North Node in Gemini and South Node in Sagittarius. So in explaining the North Node and South Node, I like to start with the South Node because that is kind of where you are coming from. If you don't believe in it, just pretend that you've lived many, 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 many lifetimes as a Sagittarian archetype. So this energy becomes common sense to you. You really know this energy and archetype really well. It is where you feel comfortable at. Perhaps in childhood, this is just where you went to naturally. This is just kind of your natural persona, way of coping with your family, and how you just kind of navigated your personal situation, because it just came naturally to you. You didn't really have to work very hard for this energy. And so the North Node is kind of what feels kind of weird, foreign, hard to do or hard to achieve on your own, but there's kind of like an interest or longing in some way, somehow, of moving towards this energy, because maybe there's some sort of outside source or thing that you want, or fulfillment, that might not be directly related to this North Node and Gemini archetype type. But if you were to do that, you would feel more successful with whatever you're setting out to do, whether that's like your career, your relationships, or whatever, So it doesn't have to be directly related to what you're trying to get, but without moving towards that, like you kind of need to do that in order to get kind of where you want to be, or what fulfills you, what's your purpose in life, And so the North Node is kind of known for what is your direction and purpose of feeling fulfilled, or a little bit more fulfilled in this lifetime. So with the South Node being in Sagittarius, you may have kind of went to almost like escaping, or feeling kind of detached from whatever situation was going on in your household, or just kind of in general going up. It doesn't have to be literally in your household, but kind of being a little bit flighty. Sagittarius is one of the most flighty signs. So it's like passionate and doesn't stay very long, So it's just like, oh, this interests me over there, or this big broad idea interests me over there. And so it has a hard time kind of grounding and staying in one place. And, there is a similarity to Gemini, because that is a mutable air sign, and that also has a hard time feeling grounded and kind of bounces around as well, but it's just a little bit different. So Sagittarian energy, it's very broad. So kind of having a big, bold, philosophical, broad idea of what you believe is right. And Sagittarius energy can sometimes come off as like a know-it-all, like your truth is the truth, and there's no kind of bending or, being curious about the other truths that are out there in the world, or belief systems that are living out there in the world. Like your truth is the truth. And so either that's a coping mechanism to feel safe. So, it doesn't feel good when you're wrong, or maybe you kind of just grew up in a household where it was just kind of one ideology, and that was it. There was no other option. And so moving towards Gemini energy is just learning to be a little bit more curious about everything else. It doesn't have to be in a political or philosophical or religious or even like a academic kind of area, because that's what Sagittarian energy kind of represents, is religion. That's what it's really known for, or philosophy, or just higher knowing, big, broad ideas. Publishing, teaching, it is kind of like the person who writes the textbook. So you just know it so well that you're the one who wrote the textbook. Moving into the Gemini energy is like, now you have to actually write and dissect and make it kind of easier to comprehend to other people who just don't know the textbook. Otherwise, there would be no need to write a textbook on trying to teach something that you know really well and other people just don't quite comprehend it. It's just like going to school. You have to start at a super, super basic entry level grade, and then you kind of build upon that. But if you start too complex, like, people are going to be very lost, so it can look like that. Doesn't have to be. Sagittarian energy could also be like just trying to learn how to communicate. So Sagittarius energy, you might be very quick in kind of like, your beliefs are your beliefs, and you don't really want to or feel the need or feel secure in explaining your beliefs. It's just, what you know, and you know that you're right. And maybe not being open-minded to having to communicate your ideas. I don't know. It's not necessarily being open-minded, because Sagittarius energy can be very open-minded because it's very big and broad. But, usually it's kind of narrowed down to one truth, or, like, you just know. And maybe learning how to branch open or feel a little bit more open-minded to these other things that feel kind of foreign to you, or feel maybe wrong, or like, I don't know, I don't trust that. Like, what I know and believe is that's it, that is the truth. And, like, you would just write off anything else, and so moving towards a Gemini energy is like learning to be curious. That is like one of the main things about Gemini energy. Learning how to communicate, ask the right questions, ask further questions based on the other questions that you've already asked, and coming up with all the questions in order to formulate that big philosophical idea that either kind of aligns with yourself, and confirms what you already know, or that may kind of start changing and altering what your kind of baseline ideology was to begin with. I don't know. I don't have this placement. So, like, be open-minded when exploring these things, because you just take what resonates with you, or what you feel you need to work on, or maybe you've had comments in the past of whatever. Hopefully it's constructive criticism. It's not like degrading kind of criticism. But you'll depending on how old you are, and what you've been through, is kind of maybe some things that you need to work on, or your life might be a little bit more pleasant and happy if you did. So it's just something to be open-minded about. So anything communication, Gemini is a communication house. Reading, writing, speaking, learning, learning things on a small, more detailed scale that's more basic and mundane, maybe kind of boring. It's not as exciting and huge, or kind of fantasizing about grand ideas that may or may not be true. Learning how to speak with a certain tone of voice, maybe like speed, if is it too quick, too fast, or too slow, or too vague, not detailed, or in-depth enough to communicate well enough to another person in order for a relationship, business partnership, or whatever friendship to move forward in a more harmonious way. Both Sagittarius and Gemini are teacher and learner kind of archetypes. So it's just interested in teaching and learning, and hopefully your way of communicating, learning, and belief systems kind of evolve for the better. Yes. Hold on. Having a South Node in Sagittarius could have been like in childhood, you're the one that people, either siblings, parents, kind of went to for guidance. Like you were supposed to know everything, or you're like the crutch, even though that wasn't your job. So they didn't know what to do. And so they look at you and be like, well, what do we do? I don't know, like I have to figure it out. Like I have to know everything. Like I know have to solve everybody's problems. And so you have to kind of, you're coming from possibly, because it doesn't have to exactly play out like this. But coming from where you're kind of you had to know the answers. You were the one who just had to know the answers. You're the one who had to know the truth and speak the truth, or maybe you were like the scapegoat, and in a family that was not very healthily functional, is not a word. You're the one who spoke the truth. You called out the BS, and you're the truth seeker, and you're the one to do that. And maybe you're scolded for it and you didn't care or whatever. And so you felt maybe foreign, like you were adopted, or you didn't feel very close. You felt detached, or kind of foreign from your family, because Sagittarius is kind of like international distance, foreign affairs, international travel, international culture, things that feel far away from wherever you originate from, so that could be like a feeling, like you feel ostracized from your family or your group or your community, wherever this is sitting, in whatever house in your natal chart. And, like you're just calling things out or questioning things, and you feel detached or foreign from the environment that you grew up in. And in order to feel a little bit more connected, you have to learn how to be a little bit more curious, and use the tone of voice and such, like the Gemini traits, in order to find other connections, or maybe create your own friendships and family that are not your biological family, and find who actually fits with your personal truth. Because maybe the environment that you grew up in didn't align with your authentic personal truth. And so now you have to branch out from your personal family and community and get curious of like who actually kind of aligns with my values, and maybe that feels really scary and foreign, or maybe you feel like this is wrong, or I'm doing a bad thing, or I'm, like I've abandoned and rejected my own family or whatever, and there might be this kind of push and pull dynamic of should I or shouldn't I don't feel safe, and like all these things that can come about with making a decision like that can feel scary. And so the North Node feels very uncomfortable and scary to us. So that could be another possibility. Trying to come up with more stuff, or just learning to be a little bit more open-minded in relationships in general, instead of being like, hey, my way is the right way. My philosophy in raising the kids is the right way in how to do it. And I'm not open to hearing what you have to say. You have to be a little bit more mutable. Sagittarius is mutable fire, is very passionate, but Gemini is mutable communication, mutable air energy. So you have to kind of, you have passionate fire and belief, like, yeah, my belief is the right way, like I know my truth, and I just know it in my bones that, whatever I believe in is the truth. But, maybe, there's no kind of smaller or defined thoughts or knowledge, books, things to kind of support what those belief systems are. Like an extreme example is, I don't know, like I'm just making it up. Like, oh, like I really believe in like a Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings fairy tale. Like I literally live in a fairy tale, and I'm not going to go to normal school. I'm waiting for the owl to come through the window to, take me off to wizarding school, and it's like, what kind of, where did you get that from? Maybe you're a child and you have such strong make-believe, philosophies, like I am totally a witch or a wizard or whatever it is. I'm a monk, and, I was time traveled over here from a different dimension, and that is just what it is. And I don't know, maybe it is. Maybe you remember past lifetimes or something like that. But, there's no kind of grounding on this kind of big, passionate, kind of imaginative knowledge or ideas that you kind of publish. You're just kind of like you lived in a published Lord of the Rings trilogy, and you're coming back to Earth and like, ew, the real world is so boring, and it's like, I really liked living as an elf in the Lord of the Rings trilogy or Game of Thrones or whatever it is. I am a Renaissance character and I play cosplay all the time. Maybe you live in that, it's kind of almost escapist. I would say escapism is more of a Pisces thing. But this is like a big, optimistic, kind of like a way to just cope with whatever you're dealing with. And so you have to learn to move towards your Gemini energy or your Gemini archetype in order to feel a little bit more fulfilled intrinsically. Let's see. I do these I don't read a prompt or a teleprompter like some other people do. So I just kind of try to come up with things in my brain, and that's why I'm giving you the authentic pause. And that's why you can't take every single explanation as the truth, because these are just very generalized examples to help give you an idea about your own personal life and your own personal experience, and knowing your own personal strengths and weaknesses, and what you kind of maybe imagine or wish for in the long term, or what you've kind of constantly struggled with, and see if it kind of aligns with you, or something that can kind of help you in whatever way, or maybe not. Oh yeah, I was like, oh no, I didn't push the record button. That I did. So yeah, Gemini could also be moving to the North Node. Gemini is like learning to kind of branch out of your normal bubble. Learn about the other people in your community or your peers and your neighbors who might be a little bit different than you, or came from a different different background, whatever that is, and learning a little bit about them, and still holding space for their beliefs that are separate or different from your own, if they're not the same. So it's kind of moving towards that, learning about the variety of people that are in your community, and getting to know them might make you feel a little bit more fulfilled or happier, safer, because you have like a variety of other people who, may support you even though they're different than you. And keeping up with communications, because Sagittarius energy might be like, kind of like, oh, I'm here. And then, oh, tomorrow I'm booking a flight for 28 days to wherever on the map. And then you don't hear about that person for so long, and like, where have you been? You've been like off the grid, and like I couldn't have access to you at all, or you weren't answering my messages or anything like that. And it was like, oh, because I didn't have a satellite or Wi-Fi, because I was on a excavation in the whatever forest, or the Himalayan mountains, and so there's no cell service, or I couldn't type on my phone because my fingers would freeze off, and so it's learning to communicate like, hey guys, I'm going to be kind of off the grid. I just don't feel well, or I'm going traveling and I need to just decompress from all this technology or whatever. And so I'm not responding to emails, texts, or DMs or whatever it is for until further notice or whatever. If you really, really, really need to reach me, it needs to be please hold off unless it's an actual emergency, or you're an actual business client or something like that, not just a random person sending memes all day long, like learning how to communicate effectively with other people. So this way they're in the know, or it's just like more respectful, or they're like, oh, you never responded, so I just kind of cut you off because you never responded back, and so like the other person's not gonna waste their time, and then you're like, oh no, I didn't mean it like that, that wasn't my intention, and just really bad at answering phone calls or replying back, these can be themes of what you may have to work on or practice depending on how old you are, and hopefully you've kind of slowly done it, over time. So it's not like it has any kind of terrible effects, on whatever that you didn't want. And even if it's like an outcome that you didn't want, hopefully you learned from it. You just had to learn it the hard way. But moving towards your North Node in some way, shape, or form, if you learn how to do that, it's going to help you move towards some kind of bigger goal or bigger fulfillment, that you also do want. It might not be directly related to that specific, North Node in Gemini in whatever house. So also check out the house placement to get like a little bit of a combo of what might be happening for you, because you kind of like have to squish it together, you know. North Node in Gemini, like in the first house, is going to look different than North Node in Gemini in another air house, like the 11th house, Aquarius, you know. So, you know, they're going to be a little bit different, you know, they play out a little bit differently, but there's going to be similarities too. So use discernment, you know, take some time to self-actualize, and, you know, hopefully this can help you move towards more happiness and success, or, you know, just feeling more at peace with yourself. Yes. Okay. So see you in the next video. Hopefully, please like and subscribe and check out my website. The description is in my description section of my channel. Okay. Bye.